The rain didn't stop. It fell harder, cold and relentless, drenching the narrow alley where two strangers and a little girl stood frozen in a fragile moment. Emma tried to push herself up, but pain shot through her ankle again. She gasped and nearly fell forward. Daniel caught her before she hit the ground. His hands were firm yet careful, like someone used to holding broken things. "You're hurt worse than you think," he said, his voice low but steady. "I said I don't need." She stopped as he looked her in the eyes, not with pity, not with judgment, but quiet understanding, the kind that made defenses crumble. "Let me help," he said again. Too tired to argue, Emma nodded faintly. Her white blazer clung to his soaked shirt. Their breaths mingled in the rain. She wanted to protest, but the warmth of his touch was something she hadn't felt in a long time. Genuine care. She looked up at Emma with innocent concern. "Does it hurt a lot?" the girl asked softly. Emma managed a faint smile. "A little, but I'll be okay." Daniel led them out of the alley toward an older brick apartment building at the corner. He guided her to a small but tidy living room, modest furniture, children's drawings taped on the walls, and the faint smell of soup from the kitchen. "You live here?" she asked, surprised. "Yeah," Daniel replied, setting her gently on the couch. "Not much, but it's home." He crouched down, examining her ankle. "It's swollen. Probably a bad sprain." Emma bit her lip as he wrapped it with a towel. "I don't usually let strangers touch me," she muttered. He chuckled softly. "Then consider me the first exception." For a brief moment, her cold exterior cracked. She watched him move, calm, patient, kind. There was a simplicity about him that disarmed her completely. When Lily brought a blanket, Emma's heart tightened. She hadn't felt this kind of warmth, not the physical kind, but the one that fills the silence, since she was a child. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel smiled, sitting back. "You can rest here until the rain stops. I'll make some tea." She had spent her life surrounded by power, luxury, and lies, yet this small apartment, with peeling paint and laughter in the next room, felt more real than her entire empire. Outside, thunder rolled across the city, but for the first time that night, Emma Lawson didn't feel alone. She didn't know it yet, but that simple act of kindness from a single dad and his daughter was about to change everything forever. Morning sunlight crept through the thin curtains, casting a soft glow across the small living room. Emma stirred awake, momentarily disoriented, by the sound of a kettle, whistling and a child's laughter. Then it all came rushing back. Her ankle throbbed, and she winced. From the kitchen, Daniel appeared with 2 mugs of tea. His hair was messy, his gray t-shirt slightly damp from washing dishes. "You're awake," he said, setting one mug on the table beside her. "It's chamomile. Helps with pain and shock." Emma sat up slowly, adjusting the blanket. "I'm not shocked," she muttered, trying to sound composed. He smiled knowingly. "You were crying in your sleep." Her lips parted in surprise. She looked away, embarrassed. It must have been the rain. Daniel didn't push. The sight of them together, simple, peaceful, tugged at something inside Emma she hadn't felt in years. She watched quietly. Lily noticed her gaze and smiled shyly. "Daddy says you can stay until you feel better," she said. Emma forced a smile. "That's very kind of him." After breakfast, Daniel gently examined her ankle again. "You should see a doctor soon. It's healing, but not fast." "I'll be fine," she replied curtly, trying to regain her usual authority. But the words carried no power here. In this little apartment, titles meant nothing. Daniel looked at her curiously. "So, what were you doing out there last night? You don't look like someone who belongs in alleys." She hesitated. How could she explain? How could she say she was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, betrayed by those she trusted most? How could she tell a stranger that the world saw her as a ruthless queen, not a woman broken and lost? "I just needed to get away," she said finally. He nodded, accepting her silence. Everyone runs from something, but not everyone finds where they're supposed to be. His words lingered in her mind long after he walked away. For the first time, the stranger and his little girl had given her not just shelter, but something rarer, a chance to start over. Outside, the morning light grew stronger, breaking through the last traces of the storm. And though she didn't know it yet, The storm inside her life was only just beginning to clear. The afternoon sun filtered through the window, warming the little apartment. Emma sat quietly on the couch, her bandaged ankle resting on a pillow, a borrowed blanket draped over her knees. Daniel was fixing an old lamp at the table while Lily colored beside him, humming softly. It was so ordinary, so peaceful, and yet, to Emma, it felt foreign. Her phone, now charged, buzzed with dozens of missed calls and messages. The screen was filled with headlines, Lawson tech in crisis. She locked the screen and set the phone aside before Daniel could notice. But he did. "You're hiding something," he said without looking up. His tone wasn't accusing, just calm, observant. Emma froze. "I'm not." Daniel chuckled softly. "You talk like someone who's used to giving orders, not taking them." He turned, his eyes meeting hers. "You're not just some woman lost in the rain, are you?" For a long moment, she said nothing. The air grew heavy between them. Finally, she whispered, "I was the CEO of Lawson Tech." Daniel blinked, surprised. "Was? Until last night," she said bitterly. "My partner, the one I trusted most, framed me. Everything I built. Gone in hours." Her voice cracked despite her effort to stay composed. "Now the world thinks I ran because I'm guilty." Daniel leaned back, absorbing her words. "And you came out here to disappear." She nodded faintly. "I didn't mean to end up in your alley. I just didn't know where else to go." Lily looked up from her drawing and smiled brightly. "You can stay here forever if you want." Daniel smiled at his daughter, then looked back at Emma. "She means it," he said softly. "But you can't hide forever either." Emma's eyes glistened. "What am I supposed to do?" "Start over," he replied simply. "Sometimes losing everything shows you what really matters." His words struck deep, simple, honest, true. She stared at him, realizing that this man who had so little somehow carried more peace than she ever had. Outside, the city glimmered under the fading sun. Somewhere within its chaos, Emma's empire had crumbled, but here, in this small, quiet home, something new was being built: trust, warmth, and maybe even love. For the first time in years, the Ice Queen's heart began to thaw. Days passed, and the rhythm of Daniel's home began to feel strangely comforting to Emma. The sound of Lily's laughter every morning, the smell of coffee brewing in the kitchen, the way sunlight fell on the chipped table. It all carried a warmth she hadn't known in her penthouse office. Her injury was healing, slowly, but her heart was still tender from the fall that had destroyed her empire. Daniel left early each morning for his mechanic job, always returning covered in grease but smiling. Emma noticed his exhaustion, the quiet sighs he tried to hide when Lily wasn't looking. One evening, while helping Lily with her homework, Emma found an unopened envelope on the table. It was from the landlord, final notice. Her chest tightened. "He hasn't told me," she whispered to herself. "He's struggling." Later that night, Daniel returned. He found Emma sitting by the window, scrolling through her phone. The news still painted her as the villain. "They won't stop until I'm destroyed," she said bitterly. Daniel leaned on the doorway. "Then prove them wrong." She looked at him, surprised. "How?" "By being better than the story they tell," he replied simply. "You don't have to fight them their way." His words stirred something in her. For the first time since the scandal, she didn't feel powerless. Old habits returned: focus, precision, purpose. But this time, she wasn't working for investors or board members. She was helping Daniel. By morning, she had a plan. "You're losing this place, aren't you?" she said quietly as he poured coffee. Daniel froze. "You read the letter." "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry," she said. "But I can help you. You run a garage, right? You could reach more customers with a proper system: online booking, inventory tracking, digital marketing." He laughed softly. "That sounds like a whole other world." "It's my world," she replied. "Or at least, it used to be." Her eyes gleamed with determination. "Let me build something for you." Daniel hesitated, then nodded slowly. "If that's what you really want." Emma smiled faintly. "It's what I need." For the first time, she wasn't trying to save a company. She was trying to save a man who had saved her. And somewhere deep down, she felt the quiet spark of a new beginning, one born not from power, but from gratitude. The following week changed everything. Sticky notes everywhere, old business instincts flickering back to life. The same sharp mind that once led a multi-million-dollar company now focused on a humble garage at the edge of town. Daniel watched her work in quiet awe. "You make this look easy," he said one afternoon as she typed with practiced confidence. Emma smiled faintly without looking up. "Building something isn't hard when you believe in who you're building it for." Her words made him pause. He had helped her out of compassion, expecting nothing, yet now, this woman who had fallen from power was helping him rise. Within days, she created a simple website for his business, complete with photos, service details, and an online booking system. She taught him how to manage it, step by step. "You don't need fancy suits or offices," she told him. "Just visibility and honesty. The two things money can't buy but people still trust." He nodded slowly, admiring her focus. "You know, you're not what I expected a CEO to be." "And what did you expect?" she asked playfully. "Cold, arrogant, untouchable," he admitted. "But you're real." Her eyes softened. "Maybe I had to lose everything to remember who I was." As days turned into evenings, their connection deepened quietly, in glances shared over coffee, in laughter echoing through the small apartment, in the way Lily began to treat Emma like family. There was warmth again in Emma's life, a kind of peace she never knew success could steal away. One night, Daniel returned from work later than usual. He looked exhausted, but his eyes gleamed with pride. "You won't believe this," he said, breathless. "We got 12 new appointments today, all from your site." "That's just the beginning," she said. Daniel's gaze lingered on her a moment longer than usual. "You've done more for me than I could ever repay." Emma looked up at him, her smile fading into something softer, deeper. "You already did, the night you didn't walk away." Silence hung between them, heavy but tender. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the window, and somewhere in that quiet, something unspoken grew, not out of need, but from understanding. For Emma Lawson, the woman who once ruled the corporate world, this wasn't a fall from grace. It was grace itself, found in the kindness of a single dad and the home she never expected to find. The sun had barely risen when the knock came, sharp, repeated, urgent. Daniel wiped his hands on a towel and opened the door, only to find two men in dark suits standing on the doorstep. "Good morning," one of them said briskly. "We're looking for Emma Lawson." Daniel's expression hardened. "Who's asking?" "Legal Department of Lawson Tech. Miss Lawson is wanted for questioning regarding fraud, embezzlement, and corporate sabotage." Before Daniel could answer, Emma appeared behind him, pale and trembling. Her heart stopped at the sight of those men, faces she once knew from board meetings, now wearing the smug look of wolves closing in on wounded prey. "Emma Lawson?" the man repeated. She straightened her posture, though fear flickered in her eyes. "Yes, that's me." Daniel stepped in front of her. "She's not going anywhere until you explain yourselves." "Mr. Reed, isn't it?" the man said, glancing at a file. "We suggest you don't interfere. This is a legal matter." Emma's voice shook but stayed firm. "It's all lies. They're trying to cover up what he did. My partner, Richard. He framed me." She swallowed hard. "It's true. Everything I told you. It's worse than that. He took everything and made it look like I did it. And now they want to destroy me completely." The men stepped forward. "Miss Lawson, please come with us." Daniel moved again, blocking the doorway. "She's not leaving with anyone without a lawyer." His calm voice carried a quiet strength that made even the men hesitate. "You can wait outside." For a tense moment, no one moved. Finally, the suits exchanged a look and turned back toward the car. "You have 24 hours, one of them warned. After that, we come back with a warrant." When the door closed, Emma's knees buckled. Daniel caught her before she fell. "I told you this would happen," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I could outrun it, but I can't." Daniel held her gently. "Then don't run," he said softly. "Fight, and this time, you won't be alone." She looked up at him through tear-streaked lashes. In his eyes, she saw no judgment, no fear, only faith, the kind she had lost in herself long ago. For the first time, Emma realized something powerful. Maybe fate hadn't punished her by sending her to that alley. Maybe it had saved her by sending her to him. That night, the rain returned, soft at first, then steady, echoing against the windows like a familiar memory. Every headline. But this time, she wasn't running. Daniel stood behind her, his hands resting gently on her shoulders. "You can do this," he said. "You know the truth better than anyone." She nodded, her voice trembling but resolute. "If I stay silent, he wins." They spent hours piecing together evidence, old emails, financial transfers, messages Richard never thought she'd saved. The evidence was there, buried under lies and forged documents. And as dawn broke, the truth began to take shape like light piercing through storm clouds. By sunrise, Emma sent everything to a journalist she trusted, someone who had once interviewed her at the peak of her career. She wrote a short message at the end. "This is the truth. Let the world see it." When she hit send, she exhaled deeply, the weight finally lifting. Later that morning, Daniel returned from dropping Lily at school. "The news," he said breathlessly, turning on the TV. On the screen, reporters were already buzzing. Breaking story: CEO Emma Lawson framed by partner Richard Hawley. New evidence reveals shocking truth. Emma covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes as the world that had once condemned her now began to understand. Her name, the one dragged through mud, was finally being cleared. Daniel smiled softly. "Told you," he said. "You just needed to fight back." She turned to him, her heart overflowing. "I couldn't have done it without you." He brushed a damp strand of hair from her face. "Maybe, but you didn't need saving. Emma, you just needed someone to remind you who you are." Just the unspoken connection that had grown through storm and struggle. Then she smiled through her tears. "You and Lily gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. A reason to begin again." Daniel's hand found hers. "Then let's begin together." Outside, the storm finally broke, giving way to a soft, golden light that filled the little apartment. The city beyond no longer felt cold or cruel. It felt new. Emma Lawson, once the untouchable CEO, had fallen, been broken, and found her way not back to power, but to peace. And sometimes, that's the most powerful comeback of all. As she stood beside Daniel, watching the sunrise, she whispered, "Maybe falling was the best thing that ever happened to me." And for the first time in years, she truly believed it.